Hey everyone, so today we are starting things a little bit differently. Yes, I'm going to show you how I lace up my corset. I have already done the ridiculous job of putting it over my head so that I don't have to show you that part. So as you can see now, I'm pulling it, I'm trying to straighten the laces, and I'm continuing to pull it until I'm satisfied with how it fits. Of course, I cannot see anything that's going on my back, so I hope you guys are checking for me. Anywho, so I'm going to tie a bow. The bow did not come out perfect, but today we're going to discuss wear and care of a corset. So I definitely welcome you to see how I did this and how you can continue doing this. And I do look fantastic, if I should say so myself. Welcome. I'm sure that was an unusual beginning. It's not how I usually start my videos. I thought it would be fun. And today, of course, I think that's a big hint. We're going to discuss wear and care of a corset. I did mention that last week. In case you missed last week's video, link is in the description. It was more about the terminologies of all these words I use all the time when I'm describing corsets. I think that will help you. It's a lot of it is in slide show form, so you can take a screenshot, you can pause to read. I just thought that would be easier than me talking and you trying to figure out what I've said. Anyhow, so the full video of me actually wearing this corset to the point of lacing is going to be, I'm going to do a YouTube short later in the week, as well as putting it in my Cinched by Miamara Instagram page, which I will also link to my Lorna the Sewist page. Cinched by Miamara is one of my brands. I don't know if in the future I'll end up having one brand. I think I'm still trying to figure it out, which is something we're going to discuss very soon. But anyway, so my Cinched by Miamara is where I showcase my corsetry work, gown work, unique dresses work. So that's probably where I'll put a good tutorial on how to wear the corsets. I think it's just a very important video, and probably I'll showcase how to wear an overbust corset, lacing and all that. But anyway, welcome. We're going to discuss all those things. I'm just mentioning them randomly here, but we're discussing all that today. Let's start. I want to start this off by reviewing a thrifted corset I bought a while back, and I bought it basically just to see how it was constructed, to just buy an over-the-counter corset, because this is an over-the-counter corset, but it was thrifted. And as you can see, it doesn't really fit me very well. There is no lacing gap, and even when I pull the laces, it doesn't really give me any reduction at all. The bust part is very, very loose. It doesn't really even hold. The bones were very flimsy and they were very, very bad, and generally it just didn't do anything. It was just hanging on my body, and it wasn't something I was very comfortable wearing, even to go out with, because it was doing absolutely nothing for me. So I decided that I was going to take apart this corset and redo it. You can see the back, there is no lacing gap, there is no support. Probably have to undo and remove all those eyelets and do new ones, and even give it support so that it can actually stay upright, and just see how basically that goes. And here is the final result of how it looked like when I was done. I think it came out very, very well. There was a very big lacing gap. I have not yet seasoned it, but that's it. And here are the images of how it looks like as well. So, wearing a corset. I know I've repeated this very many times. Number one, when you're wearing your corset, ensure that you have a protective garment, preferably one that is absorbent, made of absorbent fabric, between your corset and your skin. So that is number one. Doesn't matter which corset you buy, whether you buy mine, buy for someone else. That is usually a general rule about corsets, because of friction, and also just to make your corset basically last long and not to harm you, especially if it's steel bone. But anyway, generally, even these plastic bones, like this corset is made out of a plastic bone. I know it doesn't look like that, but it is made out of very nice, strong plastic bones. And before the corset takes your shape, when you've broken it in, generally it's just wise, have some protection between you and your corset. So the first thing to consider is, this is the waist cincher corset. It's very difficult to know which side is up or down in such a corset. So one thing I do for my clients is I always make sure the knot is at the bottom. This helps somebody know this is the bottom section of the corset, so that people wear the right way. I usually know which is the top and the bottom because I made it, but that is an indicator, especially for corsets like this. Another thing is I try to put the tag at the top. I put my tag right here at the top so that you can know. That's also another indicator. So before you wear your corset, always make sure you've opened it to the extreme end. I usually pre-lace the corset I make, and I always make sure the bunny ears are in the waist, where the waist would be. If you buy a ready-made waist cincher and the bunny ears are not on the waist, you are free to open it up, at least up to a certain section. You don't have to open all of it up and then relace it. There's always a knot, so it's easy to remove. It's not something that's very difficult to remove. So that's the first tip I would give you about the corset. Another thing about this corset, because it doesn't have an opening in the front, is that the laces of such corsets tend to be very, very long, which you will see in the video I will put on my Instagram and YouTube shorts. They tend to be longer than the corsets with an opening in the front. So even if it's an overbust corset or a waist cincher underbust corset, the laces of this kind of corsets tend to be longer because you have to put it all the way through your body. So you should never worry about if it will enter your body, because don't forget, corsets are supposed to have a 2 to 4 inch reduction for you. So generally, as much as the corset is smaller, because of the lace, when you open it to the end, of course it brings a very big gap, sometimes it's even 10 inches over here. So by the time you lace it to 4 inches and you continue to do your waist reduction, then that is, you should never worry about it fitting, because you just have to make sure that the corset you buy is going to give you, it's going to be 4 inches smaller than your waist. So if your waist 30, you're supposed to get a corset that is waist 26. That's just a little clue on how to do it. If you prefer to just have very little reduction, then you can get a waist 28, and I'm talking about inches. So that's just a clue on how to even pick a corset, especially these waist cinchers, because they're usually generally only for your waist, so it's not a very difficult thing to source. So I'm going to be making this very, very soon. Watch out for them. I'm going to be making them readily available for people to buy, both on my website, on my social media platforms, so look out for them. I would really appreciate if you buy them, because I'll make them very beautiful, and I'll make them two-sided, some of them anyway. So I hope you will purchase it. So that's about how to start wearing the corset. So now I have two corsets. This is my overbust corset that has a zip, and this is my overbust corset that has a basque. This is a thrifted one. I'm sure it looks familiar. So when you're wearing these, you of course open the lacing. You always open the lacing to the very end, and after that you put it on, and then you put the basque on. Once you put the basque on, I'm going to do tutorials on how to do all those things on shorter videos. I didn't want to make this video longer. Once the basque is on, is now when you can be able to start lacing. Never lace fast. I know it's a temptation where people sometimes pull their laces, and then you come and force the basque or the zip. Especially with the zip, that's very dangerous, because you can actually damage your zips. You always zip up or put your basque on when your corset is still loose. Then when you're lacing it, you lace it slowly to how comfortable you are. It's very, very difficult, I will not lie, to lace up an overbust corset. Most of the time you do need help, because sometimes reaching up here with your hand is very difficult. A lot of these corsets, as you can see, for this specific one, has a very high back. The reason it has a high back, the reason I make my corset with a high back, is because it helps if you have so-called love handles up here. Having a high back helps hide those love handles. So that is the reason why I put high back. It's actually a design secret which I have just told the world anyway. It's not a big deal. Low backs like this one, you've noticed, doesn't really hide that much, but it's not necessarily a big deal if you do not mind. So that's another thing. You always make sure you fasten first the zip or the basque. I think the ones that don't have any opening, it's pretty easy. Another thing to note about corsets when you're wearing them and you have a modesty panel. A modesty panel is what you put in between your eyelets for people who don't want their backs to be seen, especially for those of you who like wearing your corsets directly on your skin, or even if you're wearing a protective garment inside and you don't want it to be visible. The modesty panel is usually, it comes with a corset, and it's usually supposed to be at the back. So when you're wearing a corset, just before you really tightly lace your corset, that is the moment you can put your modesty panel. For me, I put my modesty panel separately because I've explained that my corsets are not necessarily to be worn directly on the skin, and for me, I like the idea of having a print outfit with a plain corset, or a plain outfit with a print corset, as it's a design feature for me. But if I do have orders like that, I always include a modesty panel. So some corsets come with the modesty panel attached, so you just have to keep shifting it until it's comfortable. Generally, it's easier if you're being helped. The modesty panel is always just the same length as the lacing gap. It's always as wide, it's almost always as wide as when your laces are fully open. And then when you close it in, it kind of disappears there, but needs to be straightened. So that's another tip about corsets with modesty panels. So I include modesty panels when requested for them. They don't always come with every single corset. Just thought to point that out. When you're removing these corsets, the first thing you do, whether it's this corset, the one with the zip, the one with the basque, whether it's overbust or cincha, whatever you do, the first thing you do is to loosen your laces. You loosen them until they are completely open, and then you remove the corset. That is very, very important, because if you don't do that, you can easily damage your bones, especially for the ones without opening like this. You can easily damage your bones, and actually you don't have much of a choice sometimes, because you can struggle to remove it. For these ones, always loosen. You loosen these before you open the zip or the basque, just so that you prevent them from getting damaged and also prevent your bones from getting damaged. So that is very, very important when you are removing your corsets. I typically sell my corsets fully laced, and I do take a point of marking where the bunny ears are, so I always include the bunny ears, which is usually on your waistline. I use the X pattern so that it's also just easier for the client to pull the corset and to tighten it on their own. So in the next clip, I'm going to demonstrate how you can relace after removing your lacing or having to replace your lacing. But I will use a waist cincher corset to demonstrate how you can be able to do that. First, you start by finding the center of your lace. The laces tend to be pretty long, between 5 to 7 meters, depending on the design of your corset and if the corset has an opening in the front or not. So just keep that in mind. Also, another thing to consider is the number of eyelets, because you need to mark where your waist is in the waist cincher, and then you start lacing. So I am demonstrating with this one where there are actually more holes on the top half than on the bottom half. And by the time I reach my waist, I need to have put the bunny ears. And the truth is, the thing about this lacing is it is such a trial and error. There are times you can lace very well, and there are times you can really struggle. I know in this video it looks like I'm doing it seamlessly, but truth is I had to do it twice. Despite the fact that I have experience, sometimes I make the wrong loop somewhere. So always ensure that you know where your waist is, because that's where the bunny ears must go, because the bunny ears, remember, is specifically to help you pull in your corset, and especially if you're wearing it on your own. I know there are people who prefer to pull their corsets from above and to pull it from below, but corsets are basically about cinching your waist, which is why we put bunny ears in the first place. So just ensure that you consider that when you are lacing, depending on how you choose to wear your corset. Let's talk lacing gaps. So I'm sure you have no idea what I'm talking about. A lacing gap is basically when you have these two and there's a gap in between these two sides of your eyelets or grommets, and there's a gap in between. Usually you will find that there are very many different shapes at the back there. Are they correct? So today I'm going to explain more if they are correct or not. So I'll do it in a series of slideshows because I've not really made any corsets that have any lacing gap problems, so I had to look for sources on the internet to explain. And the reason why it's important to explore is because, even as I've shown you in my intro video, when you buy a corset online or a thrifted one or one that was not made to fit you, you don't know the problems you're going to encounter because it wasn't made to fit your body. So sometimes those lacing gap issues do come out and other fitting issues. So I'm going to do it in slideshow form. Do enjoy this series of slides. So let's talk about cleaning corsets. So I will also have to do a slideshow for this specific segment because I specifically only believe in dry cleaning a corset, and I definitely would not just take it to just any dry cleaner. It needs to be someone who is probably does a lot of wedding gowns and other. It's definitely going to be expensive, but there are very many ways to clean your corset in between. Remember, I have said severally, do not wear your corset directly on your body. Even if you wear it like I wore the green corset at the beginning, you have to wear a camisole, tank top kind of thing inside that will absorb all your sweat, and then you leave your corset not to be in direct contact with your body, because remember, friction, it prevents friction. It also prevents the corset from getting dirty. When you are pulling these laces, if it is directly on your skin, and especially if you're wearing a steel-boned corset, it can be very uncomfortable, especially before you break in. So generally, it's not advised that you wear your corset directly in contact with your body. And another thing about these thrifted corsets is that they are not even made with absorbent fabric. If your corset is made out of fabric that doesn't absorb sweat, even worse. If it's satin, it could drip sweat. Like, there's so many issues that you can have. My advice is always to wear something. The corsets I make personally are not for wearing inside. I make mine specifically to be worn on top of your outfit, like the I'm wearing mine. Even my overbust corsets, I prefer to make them because there's a gown coming in, or if I'm making a corset dress, they'll always be a lining inside, but I'll always still advise that you wear something on the inside. So in this slideshow, I'm going to explain more. Basically, you'll read how to care for your corset. As I've said, it's only dry clean. I haven't explored dry cleaning fluid. I haven't explored that. You can do spot cleaning where you clean specific places where you sweat a lot with a damp cloth. Yeah, but don't forget, you always have to hang it, which I'll show you in the next video. So here we go. This is one method of how you can store your corset. Basically, you hang the corset horizontally by the laces. The reason you do this and not hang it vertically is because you want to maintain the shape of your bones, especially if you've already broken in your corset. This is how you would hang your corset to store it. This is also how you would hang it if you decided to wash your corset with water. You'd have to put it in a very aerated space and let it hang. If you have not cleaned your corset, or you've been wearing it for a while, because you remember not to wear your corset in direct contact with your skin, you always have to wear something on top. But because you can do that and probably go on with your corset without washing it for a while, you aerate it like this so that it can keep fresh. So this is just one method of how you would store your corset. Another way you can store your corset is by rolling it like I'm demonstrating in this video, and then you put it in a bag, preferably a cotton bag where it can get aerated, and then you can put it in a drawer. That's the simplest way, and I do provide bags for all the corsets I sell. Well, that's the end of our corset series. I hope you've learned a lot. First, I would like to apologize. I know some of these videos have come out at a later date. My day for scheduling videos is Tuesday. The reason why sometimes I delay is because of work, when I have client orders to fulfill, or there is so much information I need to gather, it's not going to take the time I allocated for making the video. So hopefully next month I'll get back into the rhythm. My aim is actually to do some of these videos in advance, but sometimes it's very, very hard to plan some of these things. Corsets have so much information. I'm sure I've not even exhausted everything, but I have basically shared what I know as a beginner corseteer. In case you still have comments, questions, or anything like that, please do leave them in the comment section and I will answer them. So from next week, I will be discussing more about business in fashion, business or fashion, or fashion business. What I will focus on is probably more Kenyan. So things like how to register your business in Kenya, what you need to do. I will also talk about shipping, how do you ship from Kenya, the options you have, bringing things in, what I have done. I'm sure I've repeated some of these things in previous videos, just snippets of it, and I'm really trying to dwell on it. So if you have questions, ask. And yeah, so let's see how this thing goes. Thank you so much once again for watching this corset series. I hope you've really enjoyed it. I hope you've learned a lot. And I'm sure because you've seen so many shows with so many corsets being included in the show or being a feature in some of the what people are wearing. I'm sure this information has been very, very useful. So thank you so much for watching. I guess I'll see you next week. Bye.